be great if you never had a bad day or set of bad days, but we both know that won't happen. So what do you do when stuff happens, things come up, or you've self-sabotaged again? Well, as you watch me draw this today, learn this simple framework for when you derail or when you've been derailed, and this is how you're gonna get back on track. So set the stage here. You might have self-sabotaged, you might have made a plan, it didn't happen, you might have made that plan, and lo and behold, stuff happened, things came up, got in the way, wasn't as easy, wasn't the way that you wanted it to be too. And so this is a common issue. It comes up all the time, right? We have great ideas as artists and we have insane creativity, and then life doesn't allow those actual circumstances to happen that allow us to unleash that creativity. You feel me? And sometimes life sucks. Feels like the cards are stacked against you. So what do? You just go ahead like everybody else and just go online and trauma dump people on subreddits or Discord servers? No. That's not going to help. And I think you and I both know that. And that's what brings us into the topic for today. Because when this happens to you, I want to go ahead and I just want to lay out a simple set and an order of things that you should do for when life doesn't allow things to happen the way that you want it to happen. So that when something happens to you or you happen to yourself and you get in your own way, how do you get back on that track? Because you might be thinking right now, well, I'm just screwed. No, you're not. And if you've never met me before, by the way, my name is Dr. Sean. Welcome to the Art Mentor. And as we go through this video today, please accomplish all of these steps in this framework in this exact order for maximum results. And if you're feeling like there's just no hope for you, that there's nothing you can do to reclaim your power, this is how you start. So to kick this off, one of the major things I want to put out there for you is that you probably know somebody right now that the same exact thing could happen to, and like nothing will bother them. They will seemingly just have that just run right off their shoulder. You know somebody like that? Because the difference between them and you seems like it's an impossible gap, and you're just like, I can't do that, Sean, right? And so what's the difference here? How are they able to do that? And how can you overcome what you're currently going through? Well, it starts with this, because this is literally the psychological basis for depression and anxiety in people. And the number one thing that you need to do here is learn how to challenge your interpretation. And just to give you an example, like I'm a parent, okay? And being a parent, you have some really lousy days with kids, okay? And you can't control them as much as you would like to. I wish I had a remote for them, but sometimes like they just have those days where like everything goes to hell. And they might be talking to me the way I don't want them to, or they might be disrespectful. And the hardest thing for parents, I think, to understand is that like, it's not personal. They don't mean to do it. They're learning. They are literally humans in training. And in the same vein of thought, that's what's going on with you too. What's happened to you, you're interpreting it as something that's massive. You're making it and you're taking it from a small thing to a huge thing. And we all experience traumas in life. And of course, when I say what's happened to you, we're going to exclude the big T trauma items. And when I say that, I'm obviously talking about things like death or harm or abuse, things like that. Okay, those are big circumstances. You need help for that. But small T traumas, we're going to experience that. And what we do is we inflame it, and that is the interpretation. And again, back to my example, you feel like it's personal, you feel like it's an attack, and you feel like, because you're interpreting it as something that is meant to be against you. But that is where you need to challenge your interpretation. And the Buddhists have a wonderful way of thinking about this. And what they offer for advice is they say that we will suffer more in imagination than in reality. And to explain that, what they're saying is that in your mind, you're gonna let that just sit there, simmer, cook on you, and it's gonna consume you. Because the event that happened, whatever you've done to yourself, you self-sabotage yourself, and you've sacrificed your art for it too, thinking about it for days and days and days, or weeks and weeks and months and years, it's over. But it still exists in your mind. That's your imagination wreaking havoc with you. But I just want to put it out there. You are not broken. You are not unfixable. But what I want to offer you today are some alternative interpretations and strategies so that if you are the type of person that's going to let that sit and consume and just absolutely annihilate your creativity, you can start to build yourself into the person that it will not affect or affect to a lesser degree. But at the forefront, please understand the first step is understand your interpretation and challenge it. Moving on, when you're all amped up and you feel like you can only go ahead and just consume yourself with this one thing that happened to you or things that have happened to you, or you're disappointed in the fact that things didn't go the way that you expected them to, and now you're here. The first thing that I would say is when you can't get yourself out of this mood, you want to go ahead and do something physical. And I can tell you this from two perspectives, but let's start off with the physical one because you can't deny it. This is science. And again, this works like regardless of how neurotypical you are or not. This is functionally how the brain operates. It can only send blood to one part at a time. You can't function through both. And then that also gains you a lot of great benefits too that are super healthy for you. We're gonna release and replace some of those chemicals going through your body that are causing you distress and some type of negative emotion. And instead, it's gonna bring you to a better place where you can be more resourceful. So what I'm suggesting is things like, okay, can you do some light work? Can you go ahead and go for a walk? Can you go for a jog? Can you go for a run? Can you just overall do some rigorous blood pumping activity? Like, can you lift weights? Can you go ahead and do something that's strenuous? Can you do a 15-minute workout on YouTube? Do something physical. This is not pseudoscience, it's actual science. It will redistribute all of your body's resources, which will then allow you to redistribute your emotional resources, my friend. Back where you want it, back where it belongs. And now one of the big things that sometimes people say is that like, well, Sean, I did it and it didn't work. Well, then to start, you probably didn't do it rigorous enough or long enough, and that's where I would increase those factors. Now that won't fix the problem, but it will allow you to better consider the rest of this and go through these other steps. Next, once you've gone ahead through that last step, now you're ready to go ahead and re-examine that problem. And what I big time want you to think about is this. Are you worrying about the problem and thinking that it's going to solve the problem? Because it's at this point, we kind of want to understand that worrying about the problem is not going to solve it. It's just going to be futile. It is not going to introduce any new solutions. And so what I want to put out there for you is that this is an overinvestment of your time, your energy, and yes, your attention too. Because unfortunately, one of the things that we've learned to do in modern society is we've trained ourselves to view negativity as a reward. And this sounds crazy, but it's really not. It's backed up by science, it's backed up by neuropsychology. And so when you are caught in this loop, like you're in right now, you're in a loop right now about negativity and all these things that have happened to you or how things didn't go your way and they were supposed to go a much better way, okay? We ruminate on those issues because our brain rewards us with chemicals that we expect. And if we expect negativity, then that is your reward system. And so just kind of realize and ask yourself, like, is it worth it for me to go ahead and consider this? And I've got some strategies I'm going to continue to go through this video with, but at this point in it, let's just ask ourselves, like, is this worth my time? Is this worth my energy? Is this worth my attention? Or should I be putting all those resources into my creative efforts? Because one of them is going to yield the result you want. The other one is going to continue to keep you on the spiral down. Moving on to the next step, now you're primed to go ahead and do something as well. So now that we've channeled our physical resources, let's rechannel our creative resources too, because tell me, you probably feel like there's just no point in you doing anything creative. You might be consumed with fear too. You might be worried that whatever you do, it's not gonna be great, right? Let's reverse that. Look, are you emotional? Let's make some bad art. Let's make some pissed off scribbles. Let's go ahead and throw paint at a canvas. Let's throw some clay on top of a table, okay? Let's make some highly emotional art. Let's rechannel that emotion into our physical efforts through our creative efforts. What if it's more minor though? Why don't you just go ahead? Why don't you work on that project? Why don't you work on that manga that you said mattered to you, by the way? Let's go ahead and let's work on that commission. Look, even if you don't make progress, that's not bad. Even if it's not good, that's not bad. And one of the worst things that we've done is we've convinced ourselves that if we don't do it in a way that aligns to our expectations of how we want our art to look, that it's not worthwhile. That's wrong. Another thing that you can do is, how about you just do something that won't be emotionally invested in? Like, why don't you just do some studies? Why don't you go ahead and just look up some references of some fun things that you want to do, you've never done, or you just enjoy doing, like your comfort art? See, the most important thing is that at this moment, you feel powerless. So when you are powerless, you need to switch that and ask yourself, what do I need to do to become powerful? And I want you to seek that power, because when you're down, the only place you can go is up. But this is going to take effort. Next, I want you to consider the reality of your situation and the permanency of it, how long it's going to linger, and just ask yourself this. Can you fix the problem right now? Again, going back to my example with my kids, I can't always fix that problem right now. I can help them, I can redirect them. And especially when it comes with dealing with other people or learning how to deal with yourself, most of the time, you're not going to be able to fix the problem right now. And here's the reality. Neurologically, your brain cannot worry about something and problem solve it at the same time. Unfortunately, a lot of people have taught themselves that if you are worrying about a problem, that you're problem solving. That's not true. And the reality here is very simply this. You will never, when you're caught up in those moments, you will never outthink yourself. Please hear me on that. You are too smart. You know every single landmine and where to place it so that you are going to step on it, especially you self-sabotagers. You know exactly what to think about, that you are never going to feel empowered because of the fact that every time you think about it, you come up with more scenarios and more times and more evidence of times that you haven't done it and you failed yourself. Is this you? And if you want to stop stepping on landmines that blow up your peace, let's understand this. This is when you're in an unresourceful state. And staying in an unresourceful state is being a prisoner to your thoughts or to another person or to another circumstance, which then therefore means that you are oppressed by yourself in your own selection. That's not what you want, is it though? Because here's the truth. You cannot want power and give it away simultaneously. That would be like putting a motorboat on a leaking boat and hoping that you're gonna go somewhere. You have to fundamentally shift that into something that is going to actually bring you out of it and get you to stop thinking like that. Is this going to be easy? No, but it's not supposed to be easy to develop some emotional awareness about yourself. But it's okay, you can do that. And I'm gonna be here for you on it too. And hey, if you're liking this, please hit that like and subscribe. And if this is helping you, please share with some other artists that would love to hear this and this would help them too. And please hit that hype button so this tells YouTube, push this out to more people just like you. But we are not done yet, because I gotta address this big elephant in the room. Now we gotta go ahead and address this, and it's gotta do with what do you normally do when you get upset and when unfavorable things happen to you. Because I'm gonna put it out there, most people have trained themselves to go ahead and immediately pick up some form of a screen, TV, video games. And that kind of brings up this topic. In order for this to work, this framework I'm giving you right now, we need to oppose any type of mediation. You cannot think that and actually act upon any form of screen time in thinking that it is a positive coping strategy. It is not. Because in those moments, you're not feeling better. You are not helping yourself cope, you're numbing yourself. All you do is you're turning off your brain and saying, well, I'm not thinking about it now, but then eventually you have to think about it. Everything rushes right back to you. What we need to understand is that consumption opposes creation, doesn't help it. And I understand like how you might interpret this, because this totally opposes modern, comfy culture crap content that you've heard before. Like one of the biggest gems I always hear is like, oh, well, I game until 2 a.m. because of my 9 to 5. Do we not see the issue? Because you're missing the problem if that's your philosophy in life. There's a bigger issue. and that is how much you've trained yourself to escape reality. And so what if you're building a life that you need to run away from all the time? Because just putting this out there, if your house is on fire and I go ahead and I doom scroll, it doesn't make the fire go out. Same thing goes if you have an emotional fire in your life, you just turned it off. But you got to turn it back on eventually too. And that's going to happen as soon as you hit the power button. But what if we just did this instead, right? What if we built a life that we don't have to escape from? Because if consumption is your life, then you're missing out on the life that you could have had. Do you really want that? Or would you like to use your art to build the life that you get excited to wake up for every single day? Next, I think we're ready to go ahead and accept it at this point if you're following all these steps so far. And it's just that when you're going through what you're going through right now, realize that the energy and direction that you have at all times is always going to be a choice. And look, we're oftentimes taught really inappropriate coping strategies and problem-solving strategies. And those typically come from our loved ones, our caregivers, or the people that we are around all the time. That's where we learn. That's how we've been socialized on how to deal with things or not deal with things, okay? And so like, for example, you might have been brought up in a household where every single time that mom gets upset, she goes ahead and gets a glass of wine. And now you've adopted that. You might have grown up in a household where everybody smokes, and every single time somebody gets super stressed out, they step outside and they have a cigarette. And it's not helping anything. What I want to just put out there is that those are coping strategies that you've learned. The greatest part though, is that you can adopt new ones at any point in your life according to neuroplasticity, which teaches us that the brain is something that can be reconstituted, it can be remolded, you can learn new strategies, and yes, at any age. You're never too old for this, okay? And this is going to be in heavy opposition to all of these influencers that are telling you things that are honestly dishonest, and they sound nice, and it sounds comfy, cozy, and it doesn't challenge you, because they're placating you. They're just telling you what you want to hear when they're like, it's okay, you just do what you need to do. You just take time for yourself. Look, that's all nice and agreeable, but it's all BS. We have to assume that everything we do in life is a choice, because if you want to actually get the life that you want, then learn how to channel everything in your life into the results that will give you the life that you want. And this kind of brings up this quote that I really love right now, and it's this: you're born looking like your parents, and you die looking like your decisions. Now, you might have been put into some bad circumstances. You might be going through something that's really terrible right now. But it's what you do with that that is going to actually make the difference. And let's be real. There are people dealing with 100 times worse things than you right now that still have a positive attitude, that still go ahead and get stuff done. And yes, artistically, are still doing more. And the only difference there is how they're choosing to focus their time, energy, and attention. And if you've gone through these steps so far, you've kind of been able to accept that at some level. And now you can start to repair yourself by doing these other things too. Moving on, when you're actually in that heated moment and going through these steps, you're following everything I've laid out for you here, you might still feel like there's something lingering in you. And you might feel like almost like there's this ghost haunting you emotionally, right? And you just can't get through it. And that brings up this next idea that I want you to try, because it's going to be really helpful. And it's that I need you to get 15 minutes of just pure emotional release. Because here's the problem. Most people are going to exist in a way that when something bad happens to them, they're going to have an emotional release that's like a drip. It's like an IV drip, 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 drip. And instead of that, I want you to have a full extraction of it. And let me just give you an example, okay? So last year, one of the hardest things I went through was that one of my cats died. He was all of a sudden became very sick, very ill. And there's nothing worse than when you have to take your animal to the vet. And it was a very hard circumstance because I've had that boy in my life. I'm gonna try not to get emotional about this, but I've had him like literally since he was a kitten and he was 15 years old. And walking out of there with an empty carrier is devastating. It was really hard. And I remember when I got into the car, I also realized too, the whole time I was in there, that I was gonna have to go home and like be there for my wife and my two sons that had never really experienced this before. And so I had this moment alone in my car where I just let loose. I screamed, I cried, full on ugly cried, okay? And I needed to do that because I knew that if I felt the way that I felt right then and there and I brought that home, I couldn't help them get through their suffering too. I couldn't help them go through what they needed to go through as well. And so I just let loose, screaming, crying, and that was cathartic for me. I just sat there alone in the parking lot and just got out everything that I was feeling. And that's what I want to offer for you too. And so if that's something that helps you, then go through it. If you need to go ahead and you just need to go somewhere private and just scream and full on ugly cry, do it. If you need to go ahead and scream into a pillow as loud as you can so that nobody else can hear you, if you need to go chop wood, if you want to go smash some bottles in the woods, and you can do this alone, you can do this with a loved one, you can share this moment, or you can call up your best friend and say, hey, can I just bend your ear for 15 minutes and just get all this out of me? Because negative emotions are poisonous to you. They're poisonous to you physically, mentally, and emotionally. So what you need to do is you need to exercise it, literally out of you. We've done that physically at this point. Now we're ready to go ahead and have the release of it right here too. And this is one of the best ways for you to bring yourself out of an unresourceful state into a more resourceful state, along with this next tip. Now, I think we're ready to go ahead and accept this. The point of suffering. And I want to go ahead and I want to clearly delineate the difference here. What I'm saying is that there's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. You will undoubtedly go through uncomfortable experiences like you're going through right now. That's never going to let up. Life is never, ever going to be ideal for you. It is always going to be challenging in the times, especially the times that you don't expect it. But suffering is a whole different level. Suffering is when you choose to go ahead and stay in a state of pain that is sustained. That is when you hit suffering. And again, that Buddhist philosophy is that we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality, because suffering is a state in which we keep ourselves there, like replaying that bad moment like a bad movie. Like just putting this out there, right? If we were to take this out of this context and just say like, what's your worst, least favorite food, okay? Like for me, I hate anything with mayo. Staying in a state of suffering is like me continuously eating potato salad. I would be just nonstop vomiting. I hate it, okay? Would you do that for yourself? Would you eat your least favorite meal on repeat for days, months, weeks, years? Or let's just say, like, what's a movie that you can't stand? Would you just watch that on repeat? Because that's what you're emotionally doing with yourself. But that brings up this topic. What is the point of suffering? Back to that, just to land this plane here. The point of suffering is for you to learn the lesson. The point of suffering in any type of pain is not for you to stay in it. It's not for you to accept it or just give up and give into it. No. It's for you to ask yourself, what is this teaching me about my life, about my choices, so that I can get out of it, not stay in it or not easily accept more of it. And so just to pull it back to an earlier point when I said that our interpretation is what makes meaning out of it. Let me explain that. We only have two ways to interpret anything bad that happens to us, which is that we find meaning in what has happened, it's taught us something, or we find meaning in suffering. And how you come out of this depends on which one you want to pay more attention to, because a lot of people pay way more attention and think that there is meaning in continuous suffering. And a lot of times you've been taught that or you've been rewarded for it. And sometimes, yes, we do need to share that pain, we need to release that pain, but it's at this point in this process, you should be able to understand that you need to reinterpret what's happened to you to make new meaning out of what's happened to you and find the purpose in it. Because everything in life is there to challenge you. It's happening for you, not to you, even when it seems like it's the worst thing in the world that's happened. And I'm saying this as somebody that hasn't had an easy life, by the way, in case you think I've been privileged and pampered. I have not. And so now I want to approach this. What if right now you still feel like, man, I just can't get anything together. I'm self-sabotaging myself all the time. And let's just say that you've gone ahead and you've tried other things before other than what I suggest in this video. And no matter what, you just come back to one conclusion. You feel like a total loser. You feel like you're behind. And what do you do? Is there any point in it? And to that, I want to say, heck yes, there is. There is always a point and there's always a possibility. And if you feel like you're a total loser artist, I want to tell you that's actually one of your biggest superpowers to go ahead and do better than everybody else you know. And to tell you all about it, go ahead and check out this video right here because I'm going to walk you through why this is going to give you the greatest strength. Thanks so much for watching. If this helped you, please share something that you know. See you next time.